Now, good evening and welcome. You are watching Economics Unbound and I am Thandeka Gqubule-Mbeki. Tonight, we focus on the role of education in economic development. Hello, Nana.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Nana. Yes, Tans, we also look into the effect of education on labor productivity, poverty, trade, technology, health, income distribution, and family structure.
Now, you see, Nana, education provides a foundation for development. It is the groundwork on which much of our economic and social well-being is built. It is the key to increasing economic efficiency and social consistency. By increasing the value and the efficiency of their labor, it helps the poor rise from poverty.
Yes, Tans, it also increases the overall productivity and intellectual flexibility of the labor force. It helps to ensure that a country is competitive in world markets, now characterized by changing technologies and production methods. By increasing a child's integration with dissimilar social or ethnic groups early in life, education contributes significantly to nation building and interpersonal tolerance.
Now, according to the World Bank, one of the pivotal benefits of education is labor market earnings. Workers with more education earn higher wages than employees with no post-secondary education. It says those with only a high school qualification are twice more susceptible to things like unemployment than workers with a bachelor's degree. It also says, this World Bank report, that median college-educated workers earn 84% more than those with only a high school education. Additionally, workers with some college education but no completed degree actually earn 16% more than only high school trained employees.
That is interesting, Tans, but the New Zealand Ministry of Education conducted a study using international cognitive tests. The study shows that it is improvements in cognitive skills rather than years of schooling, which have a strong influence on economic growth. It also shows that the amount of schooling undertaken is not related to growth, unless it also results in improved cognitive skills. Therefore, the quality of education is very important. However, the evidence about the relationship between tertiary education and economic performance is less clear.
Nana, the same study also shows that increased tertiary education is related to economic performance. The study also showed that increases in the proportion of employees with bachelor's degrees, for example, and above are highly correlated to increases in the average gross domestic product per person. However, it's not clear if the growing economy attracted more degree-qualified workers or the increase in degree-qualified workers actually stimulated economic growth, or a combination of the two, Nana.
Yes, Tans, but I hear that here back home, grade 9 might just be the new matric.
No, Nana, but grade 9 may soon be an exit point for schooling, as the Department of Basic Education in our country works on the introduction of a general education certificate. Now, during her address at the South African Democratic Teachers Union Congress at Nasrec Expo Center on the 26th of September, Education Minister Angie Motshekga said a draft framework for this certificate had been developed. Now, the department said also it is working on the introduction of multiple qualifications, such as the General Education Certificate before the grade 12 exit point and qualification.
There's no finishing. You're continuing, but in a different place. Remember, what we are talking about here is courses or subjects of trade, where you will be able to do subjects or courses in a place where the subjects have a huge practical component, which will enable you to be able to become a qualified plumber or electrician, or you've done woodwork or upholstery, whatever that you want to do, which is something that we want to encourage people to do, because it is what the NDP says we need to do. It even has targets of the number of people that we need to have produced in terms of artisans by year 2030. So we are working towards that. So we need to be accurate in terms of what we say, that it's not a school leaving certificate. It just takes you to another path, which will take you to another place, because what we have right now takes people to a path which is academic, and you end up with a degree which you cannot use, whereas you could go to a technical institution or a TVET college, which could give you skills that you require, that industry demands.
Tans, I am now confused. What does all of this mean? Where does it leave the role of quality education in economic development in South Africa?
Well, Nana, don't worry too much about this. We will be unpacking this further after this short break with our panel of guests. Just stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. Now, the Department of Basic Education is working on formalizing grade 9 as a second exit point for schooling. Learners who choose to have or to leave before grade 10 will attain a general education certificate, which will enable them to enroll at trade skills colleges.
The General Education Certificate, GEC as it's known, will be administered similar to grade 12 exams. The field trial for the certificate will be completed at the end of July 2020.
We are also working on the introduction of multiple qualifications such as a General Education Certificate before the grade 12 exit qualifications.
The department says it has had to adapt to a changing world.
It must take into account the disruptive brought by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, as well as the introduction of entrepreneurship and schools of specialization or focus schools. We have begun the process of strengthening our curriculum by introducing new and existing subjects such as aviation studies, maritime and coding studies.
Mochega's higher education counterpart said while it was important for the schooling system to embrace technology, it should not become a tool for exploitation.
Lots of progress was made through those revolutions, but at the same time, inequalities are worse in humanity today than they were 100 years or 200 years ago. Ideally, technology should be serving the interests of humanity.
Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Nasrec.
Now, some education experts say that there is no market demand for the qualification and it will not add value to the system.
Setting the cat among the pigeons, the idea of a general education certificate has been blasted from parents to academics.
I don't think that there's any real justification for it. I think it will add very little value, if any, to the system. I think there's no demand for a lower level certificate in the labour market. We've just done a big survey of manufacturing companies, and the lowest entrance requirement that they have is matric.
One expert says the department should spend its time and resources better, calling the move regressive and inconsistent with continental trends.
Most African countries do have earlier exit certificates, and most of them are moving towards eradicating them. We had an earlier leaving certificate many years ago, and it was eradicated because there's no demand from it.
Some industry players are also opposed to the suggestion.
Vocational qualifications, it's got to be looked at a lot more seriously. Given an opportunity, I would suggest that you go vocational, granted, but after you have developed your brain sufficiently, I would say even that exit should actually be at matric level, not at grade 9.
On the streets, opinions differ.
I don't agree with it because I feel it will discourage learners not to go to school.
It doesn't have any use because it's the same like JC. They said our children must have matric now. They're going back to JC. They're condemning our children.
Schooling without skill is meaningless. It's like political freedom without economical freedom.
There is a chance that it can go bad. For children to just drop out of school and not go to FET colleges and to further their skills. They are adding that element in by legalizing it.
If you can't handle grade 10, 11 and 12, then you can go get a specialized degree certificate in something for actual skills.
While the debate rages on, the Department of Basic Education has defended its decision, saying that the aim is to get more learners to become artisans. Mahlako Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, that was an interesting report by my colleague Mahlako. And to discuss further, I'm now joined in studio by researcher and economist Mielani Mkhabela and education activist Jamie Mcti. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to the SABC.
Pleasure to be here.
Wow, cat among the pigeons, literally. What do you think, Mielani? Let's start with you. Do you think that we are moving in this way towards, you know, creating the kind of skills that this economy needs?
What I will have to start with precisely is for all of us to understand the role of education, which enriches people's understanding as the first element. And then secondly, we look on education that raises people's productivity, innovation, education that makes people to be entrepreneurial in society. And education is the one that when we expect the economy to grow, we need some critical skills that will assist us to manage that economy as it is growing. So when you look at this certificate and then you attend to where the country is now, benchmarking it with other countries, today I will probably start with Germany. I feel this certificate, it will add value in building the economy, because when we look on education, we are not focusing on one side of education, which is academia. We really need to focus on academia and practice, of which that is one aspect that Africa as a whole, it is facing this challenge.
Let me just come in there, Mielani. The University of Cape Town publishes an entrepreneurship report.
Yes.
And my reading of that entrepreneurship report, one of the biggest takeouts for me is that successful entrepreneurs in general tend to be better educated entrepreneurs. And that means that they've spent more time in the schooling system acquiring a number of hard and soft, imperceptible skills.
Yes.
So there's a positive correlation between the amount of time an entrepreneur spends in the formal education system with the success rate of their enterprises.
Yes, I have been following that report for UCT when we start, probably it was 2006, when we have the United Nations Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. We produced a report as South African Youth Chamber of Commerce in partnership with UCT and UN Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And such indicators, which is education and continuous training, yes, they are highlighted, but we are not expecting almost everyone to be an entrepreneur and everyone to be creating elements. We need people that will be creating. And then I understand that. Hence, on my starting, I'm saying education increases people to be productive and then to be creative. And then we also have to look on academia, which is formal education that will go to tertiary, and practice, which it will be the technical aspect as well, of which when these two elements are combined, it will make our system to be good. So at grade 10, when they have that exit
at grade 9,
at grade 9, when they have that exit certificate, it will allow those who are unable to continue and pass grade 12 to get into technical, because even in general...
Isn't there something wrong with actually stigmatizing the student and saying that they are unable to proceed further than this point? Isn't it that the system should be providing the kind of dexterity and flexibility in the system that is wholesome, that gives people both a taste for the broader academic subjects, which are like sociology, history, and so on? Aren't we making a false dichotomy between hard skills and the understanding of society and the journey of humanity?
We need a balance. My statement is, we don't need everyone to be a lawyer. We don't need everyone to be an economist. We don't need everyone to be an architecture.
But
there must be
whatever
a balance in an economy. There are people that the department is not forcing people to exit. The certificate, it's there even in other countries that are developed, like Germany, Singapore, Finland, and Sweden. They have those certificates, and some they have 3, some they have 2. So in that, the students are not exiting the school. The students are progressing, but they are assessed with a national certification. And that national certification, when with their preference, they opt to go to technical or technical and vocational education. They will opt to that. And at the same time, it will assist. But a lot of students now, they are just dropout, and then they don't have the capabilities of probably passing grade 12. Or we have a huge number of people that you could see that they are struggling to pass grade 12, of which all those interventions are being made. There is summary exercises of students that are at like your grade 7 to 10 now that assist as well in making sure that the student progress and finish.
Let me bring you in here, please, sir. But before that, let me just say that isn't education and an extensive accommodating formal education that doesn't discriminate against people of differential ability, isn't that the ballast upon which future hard skills and other type of professions are developed?
We definitely need to make sure that our basics are covered. And currently, South African education is a Mabena, it's an Orlando Pirates, if I'm putting it bluntly. And the reason why I say that is there are certain tests that we've taken that indicate that we're doing very poorly. And we need to be very cognizant of those statistics. So I'm just going to tell them to the South Africans so that we all know what we're talking about. When it comes to the progress in international reading and literacy tests, 80% of our students were found to be unable to read at the level that they're required to. When it comes to the trends in mathematics and science studies, they reflected the same, that South Africa was 6 years behind its peers in the quality of calculations that they were supposed to be able to be doing. So someone who's in grade 6 in South Africa is close to being a grade 1 or a grade 2 in Germany, right? When we did the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development tests, there were 76 countries that took part. South Africa ranked 75th. When the annual national assessments were being done by the Department of Basic Education, most of the results indicated that grade 9s were unable to do the maths that they were supposed to do. And you can go find those statistics on the internet, but the annual national assessment results are actually available on the Department of Basic Education site. So to go back to your question, it's very important that before we say to a child, you can't do this. You know, that being a lawyer, being an engineer, being an architect is not for everyone. We need to make sure that we've actually equipped that kid to do that.
So in fact, the system fails us, as the statistics, and especially the OECD report and the World Bank report shows, that we've created a system in education that's heartbreakingly poor.
Absolutely.
After such a poor historical system, which was the Bantu education system, and then we failed in this way, and we fail the kids, and then we say exit the system early because you can't cope.
That's what this particular proposal seems to be trying to normalize and legitimize. Because if you look further, the reasons that have been offered have been repeated quite a few times by Elijah and Mielani. And if you realistically look at it, the global market needs have shifted. It's not only 4IR that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the Internet of Things. We have to deal with the digitalization of certain kinds of labor. We have to deal with trends that are showing that the kind of robotics and AI that are now available in the factory line. Because a lot of the argument that we've heard...
And those need basic literacy and mathematical
Exactly,
skills.
because you can't just go operate complicated equipment without having the skill set to be able to do that. So plumbers of the future, engineers of the future, or even artisans of the future are going to have more of an understanding of software programming, because that's what they're going to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Let me bring you back into this. Mialani, I can just imagine a grade 9 student. Now, I volunteer in the school system to teach, and grade 9s can barely relate to a long text, let alone apply the main learnings and main concepts in a longish text. That isn't a problem of the absence of hard skills. That is a problem of literacy. So you have a grade 9 student who barely performs well in terms of reading for understanding and comprehension and the ability to pick up concepts and apply them. And then you're saying exit at this point to go to technical school, where they're going to have to read long text and apply and create models and programs and do these hard skills without the basic foundations for doing that. What is this?
So when you look at grade 9 exit, if they decide to go to technical or TVET, so the TVET, when you are at grade 10, you do N1. So grade 10, so that is the awareness that almost everyone must have. So grade 10 is, let's say, N1, grade 11 is N2, grade 12 is N3. And then when a person has grade 12, is not as well propelled to go back and do N1, N2, and N3. The same as the other person will have.
What's the importance of people doing N1, N2, and N3?
Technical, like technical courses. So in an economy, you get an economy that will be producing. When we speak about the future of manufacturing or the robots that like now probably will just use them. We are not going to manufacture them. But we need to as well prepare people that are going to produce the robots. We need to prepare people that will be there to be in a production center of all these different manufacturing like industries. And that will need rigor in terms of technical abilities. So someone who go to university and complete a degree in let's say in production might be different with someone who goes to a TVET and complete a degree in relation to mechanical engineering. So in those like aspects, the one that goes to technical get to be doing the work practically. And in doing the work practically, the same quality of education that the grade 11 has on formal special educations, and then what the other education that will be the general that will feed into the technical will have.
But
it is weighed in the same level.
I'm sorry, Mialani,
Yeah.
I'm listening to you carefully
Yeah.
with regards to trying to find out how you are addressing the question that
Yeah.
we are raising, which is that what a certain level of proficiency,
Yes.
technically, conceptually,
Yes.
literacy-wise,
Yes.
and mathematically, numeracy-wise,
Yes.
is required
Yes.
for those kind of skills to be developed, like robotics, like coding, for example. Now, if you don't have a certain quality of discourse, and you cannot engage with written text or numbers put to you and apply them to solve problems, how are you going to engage with robotics, even at N1, N2, N3 level? Isn't it that you need a certain basic grounding that is rigorous in the general education system before you can leapfrog into the hard skills? That is the question I'm not hearing you respond to.
Okay, so with regard to that, when you look at people that will be programming, the people that will be programming will need high tertiary education. The people that will be on the operation or on the production, in the manufacturing center, people that are producing items, they are technical people. So in the country, we are having a problem of we don't have technical people. The country has just only managed to produce a lot of graduates that are academic. So in that, you see, if we have all these people which are like academia and that are technical, they are growing together in qualification, it will make the economy to have a balance. Because when you look on the future of manufacturing, the future of manufacturing will need us to have a lot of people that are technical, other than people that are going to be sitting wearing ties in boardrooms in that fashion. Because as well, universities currently, they don't have the practical artisan equipments that are expected to channel people to be technical. But when you look on technical colleges, which are TVETs,
I
they
think
are
many of
able
the
to...
engineering schools around the country, like WITS Engineering, UJ Engineering, and UCT, would dispute a lot of what you're saying. But can I give you a chance?
Yeah, please. So I think what Mielani is missing is that there has been skills inflation. It doesn't cost what it used to cost in terms of baseline in order to access certain jobs. So before, you could get a certain job with your standard 6, your standard 8, because that was the requirement. Now, you can't even get some of those jobs with the matric. So what the government is doing is trying to put new wine in an old skin. This old skin of, hey, some of us can't do school, so let's make you be a carpenter, let's make you be a plumber, and give you a certificate that will allow you to go to the market and say, here I am, hire me. Except that the market is saying, listen, the price has gone up. Now we don't need those baseline skills. If you want to come and work at this factory, you need to be able to read this user manual. And if we get a new machine, you need to be able to program it. So he thinks that engineering is only for the engineers at WITS. No. Now, more people are required to have a baseline understanding in how to use complicated equipment. And if they can't use that equipment, if they can't read those user manuals, if they can't read the updated printer manual, for example, then they can't work at type K.
Is manufacturing work as devoid of intellectual content as Mielani is making out, especially future intellectual
It absolutely
work?
isn't, and that's the point that we're trying to put across. If you look at the trends in manufacturing, if you look at the kind of manufacturing that is being done now, yes, there will be some menial labor that is done there. We don't want our young South Africans to even do that because it's pennies on the rand. What we actually want is them to do high quality manufacturing work, and that's going to require them to have a certain baseline of skills. And when we compare ourselves to Germany and Singapore, we do so at a disservice to ourselves, because it's like Bafana comparing themselves to the Brazilian team or any other team that is elite. What our education is right now is not at that level. So the grade 9 in Germany who exits and goes to their vocational education system, which is called the dual VET, that person has got 6 years more education in them than the average South African would have at grade 9. We're not competing at standard with our peers internationally.
And they would have had the benefit of a publicly provided, efficient and well-directed ECD system in those countries that you mentioned, like Germany, where before they get into basic education, they would have had early childhood development, where you have children who start reading at home at the age of about 2 or 3
years, yeah.
And then you have children who enter the ECD or the early childhood development centers able to count, and some of them to write their names. Now, in South Africa, we have students who are being passed through the first, grade 1, grade R and grade 1, and they still have got poor motor skills, poor concept skills, and so on. So at the very roots of our education system, we're doing poorly. Shouldn't we be fixing that?
You see, the problem that is there, and it's very good that you are posing that problem. And for Department of Education, whether it's basic and higher education in general, to attend to it. The challenge that we have besides exiting, it's the teachers. There is no proper investment on the teachers in relation to teaching the skills and expectations of the future. And from that level, so I was answering something else, but like when we come on this one that you are posing now, we are looking at teachers that needs to be trained. We did not train our teachers 6 years back in preparing them for the fourth industrial revolution.
Can I ask you to hold that thought? And
Yes.
the issue of teachers, and the minister said this at a teachers' gathering. We will continue with this discussion after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and I'm still joined in studio by researcher and economist Mielani Mkabela and education activist Jamie Migti. Sorry.
Mighty.
Mighty.
There you go.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name.
Forgive you.
Let's get back into this discussion about early childhood development. I remember, I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it was under the educational stewardship of Minister Kada Asmal that we just privatized the early childhood development centers. And we left that to the moms and the pops, and they were no longer the responsibility of the state by and large. And the children's nutrition suffered because I know a few of those institutions where it's just Oros and biscuits, if at all. And those institutions were not giving a proper grounding in the basics of education to our little ones, and therefore denying them a basic education and training in the fundamentals that future educated citizens would need, like numeracy, social skills, as well as reading skills. So are we going back to the days where we are taking responsibility for ECD? Because I've been hearing the minister speaking increasingly about ECD. Are we going back there?
So the strategy of the department, when we look at it, it comes up focusing Department of Education taking responsibility about early childhood development, primary education and secondary education. But what I was talking about before we go on like a break, I just indicated one factor to say when we want to prepare for the future or this radical changing world, we really need to look at preparing the teachers. So we should have had teachers that are being prepared to train for this fourth industrial revolution. And from this year, which is already 2019, we have 6 years now, because 2025 will be starting the fifth industrial revolution.
And in the interim, what happens to the quality and the substance of what we are using as education to mold the souls and the capacities of future citizens?
So like now, the evolution, you can see that the first industrial revolution took long and the second industrial revolution took long. But from the third industrial revolution to the fourth industrial revolution, it took like a shorter period. And from fourth to fifth, it mainly like now like a
so
period
you're saying
of
we must catch up
5 years. So adaptation is expected to be high. So in that, it needs teachers to be trained highly and then understand these concepts so like well. So the Department of Education must come up with those summits, and they must come up with other benchmarks to align the teachers to be ready.
But
and
while you are
teach
using
the
these
things
6 years to train the teachers up, and the teachers in this country do need assistance and training and support and nurturing so that they can better prepare our children for the future.
That is continuous education and training.
But what happens in the interim to the kids?
So
shouldn't we then introduce the new exit point once we've been able to train up the teachers?
We don't have to stop the exams. The exams are going to encourage students to read much and understand more things if we have more layers of exams that are national. And then it will be a good layer that when students go to write grade 12, they are able and they are used to write a national exam at grade 12, like what other countries are doing. So that part is an intervention so that to prepare the student as well to be used in writing a national exam, and then when they go for a grade 12, and then they are able to receive a national paper and write it. So that is an intervention that is made in this changing world. So the document for that strategy is a bit like bigger. And then in the last interview, I indicated that it's not good for people in general to talk about this aspect without as well going to the document, read it like with an understanding, because when a lot of commentators are speaking, as well other activists.
No, we have read and we have prepared well for this interview.
Other activists are just speaking as well to differ, but we are looking at having a welcoming state to say, let's have a prototype of this system, and then we adapt to it, and then we move with the changing world. And every year we'll be expected to prototype a lot of things because things are changing every day, and we're expected to adapt to these radical technological changes.
Mialani, I'm struggling a bit. Maybe Mr. Mighty, you can assist me. I'm struggling with the notion that a bricklayer who is undertrained educationally in terms of intellectual subjects like history and so on, does not need to be an informed, active citizen who engages with other subjects once they come home from laying the bricks, such as the education of their own children, such as making good political choices about who is to govern and how they ought to govern. Does this exit point that drives our kids into the system that is more mechanized, does it not denude them of the other subjects like history that they would need to engage with a modern world and a fast evolving world for that matter? Just because we will be relating to robots doesn't mean that we must be undereducated in the evolution of human history, for example.
You're absolutely right. And I think it's critical that people who are supportive of this government policy recognize that we are familiar with the Ministerial Tax Team report on the NSC. We are familiar with the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum. We've read the NDP on education. And some of those documents contradict this kind of an idea. If they want to have a national exam that assesses where our grade 9s are, that's fine. But if they give them a certificate that can lead to some of those students saying, that's it, I'm out, I'm going to take my chances with this piece of paper, that's problematic. And it's problematic for the reasons that you've outlined as well, right? In the first instance, a bricklayer who is merely a bricklayer is going to zone themselves out of future work opportunities because they won't have the capacity to reskill because they will have had a simple baseline of education. But beyond that, what you are speaking about is the way that it corrodes the quality of their civic participation, because they do need to have more critical thinking skills. They do need to have more cognitive build-up. They do need to have more conceptual analysis in their system. And when we say to our kids, we give up on you, we fail in our role as a parent. I have never, to this day, met a parent who doesn't want the best for their child. The good parents always fight for the best that their child can attain. What the government is doing, on the other hand, in addition to the insult that is saying to our kids 30% and 40% and 4 subjects passed are good enough to progress, now they are saying even if you skip 3 more years of school, you're still good enough to go out of the system and make a plan. And I don't think I've ever heard any good parent say that's sufficient. And that's what the government is proposing. What we need, however, is not this expensive waste of time proposal. We need to attract quality teachers. Here's the reality. We are currently paying teachers an insufficient amount of money, right? And it's costing us. It's costing us because we have to cut corners in the teachers we hire. There are many people who are working for the private sector in all of these companies, working crazy hours, who don't want to do it, who would have preferred to be teachers, to be building up the nation, but it's not attractive to them monetarily. They look at the numbers and say, look, I'm getting this in a law firm, I'm getting this at my engineering company, I'm getting this at my construction company. I would love to teach kids coding, mathematics, etc., but I can't do it for that kind of money because my rent is high in Johannesburg, my car bond is high. So we need to look at remuneration packages for teachers that are...
But shouldn't we also as citizens and as active citizens start helping in the education system, sharing our skills and volunteering, basically?
We should, and people do that, but we have to be cognizant of the time pressures that exist in the modern economy. Most of these engineers, doctors, lawyers, etc., they're working crazy hours, over 100 hours a week, some of them. So we definitely need to look at, we need these math students, we need these coding students, we need these graduates to teach our kids all of these skills. We can't attract them with the salary that we're offering. If the president and the minister had gone to the SATU conference and said, listen, we're changing the remuneration package to attract these kind of skills, we're building these kind of remedial programs, because he's right, 6 years is a short amount of time. We have kids who are currently in the pipeline. These are our first and last line of defense for the future of work. We have to equip them appropriately. So if they need remedial learning, we need to roll that out extensively. We need to be getting teaching assistants from the universities, people who have a little bit more time or flexibility to go into those SCASI schools and to provide robust teaching. Right now, what we're saying is next year, we're going to spend a lot of money doing a test, giving grade 9s an exit certificate. Is that going to make us competitive against China and Germany and South Korea? It's not.
Now, can I just ask you something again?
You posed like a point that I feel it was not answered well, because other countries that have developed well, they have such a social commitment as citizens of the country. So when you look at the system like Singapore, their mentoring system, whether it's for managers and CEOs and government like leaders, at the same time mentoring the kids from ground root level and looking at the family responsibility in taking care of the kids from the age of 3 years and building them for that 2 years, that has to be as well part of the system of education. You see a country that has a patriotic social commitment in building the nation. See, the capitalist model of thinking, it doesn't build the economy, that in everything that we do, we need to be remunerated. At times, if we love this economy, we really need to commit our time, because a lot of us, I would say, government has TEFSA, where they were giving kids bursaries, and then government now it is saving from 1999, 2000, they introduced, they changed TEFSA to NSFAS. So if all these people that are given NSFAS, they are not able to assist back the economy with the skills that the government was assisting in funding them, I think the country is in a wrong direction where we are selfish. So I think this is one element that
painting too bleak a picture here of a disinterested citizenry. We've got amazing civil society organizations that have held the Department of Basic Education to account. I mean, lest we forget Michael Komape, who died in a pit latrine. Equal Education, Section 27, civil society organizations such as the one that Mr. Mighty represents are important, and those school governing bodies and parents committees that are committed to the schools have played a big role. But what we are looking at here is huge governmental failure to deliver basic education as a service. And are we papering over the failures by using our need to adapt to 4IR?
I think because the change that is happening now, it needs South Africans to change their minds as well. So the challenges that we are having now, they are different with the challenges of the past. When we speak about 4IR, 4IR will be swallowing even jobs that are for pharmacists, radiologists, accountants. Those are the adapted technologies that have started to clear such types of work because of 4IR. So when you look at that, the thinking as well, it has to change, because here we are looking at the change that has disrupted the whole global community. And in terms of the implementation of the 4IR as well, there must be that mindfulness as well, because this change, it can as well destroy some of the economies if we are not mindful, if we don't have proper problem solving, if we don't have critical thinking in addressing this complexity that we are facing, because it's not really for one government. Our democracy is still very young. We have countries that have been there forever. Greece has collapsed. It has been in recession, and they were struggling so much. But that is the solid of the global community. In financial institutions, business consulting, they were the ones that were helping all these nations, I mean Greece. But when change happens after recession, they failed to cover or to recover or adapt after recession, I would say 2012. They just recovered around last year. Do you understand? And this is a strong economy.
Greece,
and
Greece has gone back, has created, well, they had a huge unemployment problem. They have really made a lot of progress in addressing their unemployment problem. But getting back to the 4IR, my reading of the PwC report, the World Economic report, the ILO Future of Work report, yes, and whose foreword is written by our own president, it emphasizes the importance of quality basic education in order to execute the additional adjustments that we need to make to our skills profile as a nation. It also emphasizes the issue of reskilling.
Yes.
And also it should be, it says that countries should be making arrangements to import skills from each other where there are lacks, so that there is that skills transfer between economies that have a surplus of a particular skill and those that have a deficit in the given skill. Now, those reports, nowhere is it said, paper over the cracks of a failed basic education system by arguing for the new skills that are needed by the 4IR.
Actually, I'm not saying Department of Education must not improve, and people must get me right around that. There are challenges that we have as an economy. There are challenges that Department of Education is having. But this intervention of making the student to write a national exam, while other countries that we project ourselves to be competing with them, or that we want to compete with them, they are already writing, let's say, 3 national exams or 2 national exams, and then we are writing 1. So it will be good for South Africa as well. You know, on the Millennium Development Goals, there was more of literacy, and now we are in Sustainable Development Goals, where we speak about quality, of which that is the item of quality education that you are relating to. We are pushing as well with regard to quality education, while at the same time we are ensuring that we strengthen the assessments so that we can see the problems earlier. If we are only seeing or testing the students at grade 12, it is like delayed.
Please come in here.
So I mean, what I'm hearing, and this is the consistent government line. One, the government will say things which Shaggy would say in a song. It wasn't me. It was the parents. It was civil society that didn't meet us halfway, etc., etc. We spend 6.5% of our GDP on basic education. We don't get a comparative result, right? Our literacy levels, if you look at the gap, we are behind Botswana, we're behind Tanzania, we're behind Zimbabwe, and they spend a fraction of what we spend. That's number one. Number two, this idea that if somebody maybe comes to tile your bathroom, right, and they mess up the job, then they say, listen, to solve the tiling problem in your bathroom, guess what? Let me tile the kitchen as well. No, you already did a bad job in the bathroom. Why would I come and hire you to redo the job again here? And this is the critical conversation we need to have, because the same people who have miseducated our kids are saying to us, don't worry about the last 9 years or so of the miseducation. We have a new plan, and that plan is called another test. Now the test is not going to solve our problem because we've already identified there are deficiencies in the quality of learning, there are deficiencies in the resources of the schools, there are deficiencies in the standardization of those particular schools. And while we are going backwards, guess what the private schools are doing? There's now a trend that people are doing A-level in South Africa because they want to be globally competitive. When they're not doing A-level, they're doing advanced placement programs in mathematics, in science, in physics. Why are they doing these things? So that they can be globally competitive. While those rich kids are going the extra mile to get extra skills, to be prepared for the future of work, we are going backwards, and that's not good enough.
Your last word in a second.
My last word, it will be, I have seen technical and vocational education working with a good model from Singapore. And if they can install probably a TVET system from like Singapore's like way of doing things and German way of doing things, it will add value in the inequality and the quality of education that we need to grow and manage our economy.
Well, dear guests, I have to thank you, and that's all
much.
we have time for today. It was a riveting discussion.
Thank you.
Dear guests, that's all we have. Good night.
Education has the power to uplift a country and establish a healthy, efficient economy. It has also played a pivotal role in the increase of productivity and wages amongst workers and proved to be a successful endeavor for investors. Fortunately, there is much more potential within education to help the world to flourish. That is all we have for you tonight on Economics Unbound. Good night.